All right, so great. We're live, episode 25 of Unplanned with Phil Bland, and today I've got Julie-Anne Soto, and we're trying out some new technology.
Yeah.
It's a bit confusing, but hopefully it works out. And I think we're live on Facebook and on YouTube, so this will be interesting.
I'm
Yeah,
excited.
so I wanted to get Julie-Anne and just on to chat. I know that we've kind of got to know each other quite a bit over the last couple of years, and you know, she's a new mum, so she's been dealing with all of the stuff that comes with that, and you know, obviously lockdown's a pretty tough time for people that have kids in the house all the time, so
Yeah.
we can touch on some of that stuff and just kind of riff off and just chat about life in general. Welcome to
Cool.
the
No, I'm
show.
excited. Hello.
Awesome.
How are you?
No, how are you? More like
Well.
how are you? How are you getting on?
I
Are you dealing with
have
this?
a beer and this and there's more to come. So it's been one of those days.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, it's been pretty crazy actually. Last week I just started a new contract, so I've just been working super hard, kind of in the flat and stuff.
Always.
Yeah, but like we've been in lockdown now for what, like 8 weeks or 9 weeks? Is it now? It's starting to get relaxed.
I think we're in our 9th week, and then
9th week,
I
yeah.
think Monday it might be the 10th week. But I actually like felt this all coming, and I properly like, I think after the weekend of the 4th, I was like, I don't want to go out anymore. I was like, I actually ditched 2 nights out when my daughter was at her dad's. And those
Oh,
are my
really?
precious
Yeah,
times,
yeah,
my precious times. And I was
Mm.
like, no way, I'm staying in, because I was just petrified. I was like, nah, I can sense it, sense something coming. So yeah,
Yeah, it kind of felt that way. It was a weird kind of time. Everybody was sort of, I don't know, it was like you can feel the sort of energy changing when people
Yeah.
were going out to bars and restaurants and things. People were kind of a little bit scared even before the lockdown came in.
Yeah,
It's a weird one.
So, yeah, I've just been, oh man, I don't even know where to start. It's been really good, because I have spent every moment for the past 10 weeks with my daughter, and she's completely changed in those 10 weeks. She's walking, she's actually verbalizing with me so much now, which is great, but she also tells me no all the time. So she's starting to put up arguments with me, which is mental.
Yeah.
And yeah, just like spending every moment with her is amazing. I've not showered today yet because I've been out with her. I was
I don't think you're alone. Somehow I just don't think you're alone. I think there'll be a lot of people watching this that just, you know, haven't showered too, and they're just like sitting at home, you know, vegging out. It's kind of been a good time for that.
But I was just out all day with her today, so yeah, I don't know. It's just been, I don't know. I feel bad for parents that have like primary school kids and like older children, because like she's still a baby essentially, so it's easy to entertain her, but oh man, I couldn't imagine her as a 5-year-old.
And I know you've been pretty worried.
I'd be even more demented.
I know you've been pretty worried because of all this stuff with like family, and you know, obviously a lot of people are in a position where some of the members of their family might be more at risk than others. So how's that kind of been for you during this time, thinking about that?
So my mum has rheumatoid arthritis. So essentially that means she has a really, really bad immune system. And she literally, it's kind of like MS. It's not as bad as MS. Obviously we have different stages, but she has the worst stage of rheumatoid. So we can't leave the house. Like my dad's and my brother, like both of them live obviously with my mum, so they haven't been able to like go out, and I've really needed to be extra careful. And obviously with my daughter, it's been quite you know, I can't go to the shops. I've been relying on like online shopping, and luckily the NHS and the government have given all vulnerable people a chance at getting head of the queue slots with Tesco, Sainsbury's, Morrison's, and they actually give you free food every week. So they have 2 hampers that they give you, and it has everything that fresh fruit, veg, milk, bread, whatever, all the essentials that you need. So essentially, I've been I've been going to mom and dad's and just like, hi guys, can you feed me? Like, I have so much food in my cupboards, but it's like canned stuff, and I'm just like, they have all the good stuff.
Yeah. And you've had it pretty tough, because there are like just various circumstances, I guess, because your brother was working in the supermarket, and so he's like, but having your mum at home with the at-risk side of things.
So basically, his management has been really, really good with him. He's a really good employee, and he's been there since it first opened. So they've been really, really good. They've been giving him his full wage. They, once my mum got the NHS letter in saying that, like, use this if you have any people living with you and they have to work, like, you have to start shielding now. So they've treated him so well, and I'm actually really glad, because I can't even imagine, like, he did it for like a week, I think, as soon as it all started, and he was like, look, everything's mental. We aren't getting the proper, like, PPE stuff. Like, I feel like I should be wearing like a shield on my face. And he just said to the boss, like, look, I can't do this. So they've been so supportive, which is really good. Although I think he is dying to get back to work, because being stuck in the house is a bit crazy. And he hasn't seen his girlfriend either, so he's just like going insane. It's his birthday today as well. So
wow, happy birthday.
It's not ideal, but
it's just like so many people are going through similar situations at the moment, and I'm just trying to like use this kind of channel and these conversations to just try to like bring a bit of light, and I guess try to make the best of these types of situations. We're all at home, but it kind of does make you super grateful for the things that you do have, like maybe people take their family for granted sometimes, or things, but at times like these just makes you kind of realize what's important.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we've all kind of grown closer, which is really nice. And Zara goes to her dad's tomorrow for the first time in 3 months.
Wow.
So she's spending a long weekend. She comes back Monday, and it'll give me a really good break. I love her so much, but it's doing it on your own is especially hard. And I think I feel for anybody that doesn't even have a support system like I do, like my mum and dad, and like having you guys that I can call up or whatever. Like, I can't imagine not having that. And I think there must be a lot of that kicking about. And
people just we don't really realize how much we rely on one another until you're kind of limited in what you can do in situations like this. So, how's that been with Zara's dad? So how's the kind of dealing with this situation? Obviously, you guys are not together, but trying to organize Zara's time during this period. What's it been like?
So it was a bit hard, because as you know, we unfortunately don't get on as well as we would like, I think. And he was actually quite happy with her being with me for the period of time, purely just because of situations and on his side. But I think as soon as it was like reaching the 4th or 5th week, he was like, right, this is, I think I really need to see her. But I had to explain to him, I'm so sorry, but I can't do that. Just because it's putting my family at risk. And you can FaceTime. FaceTime's a great thing. You can FaceTime her every day whenever you want. But unfortunately, I think he didn't really see that side of it. But we talked through it, and we I think he understood eventually that it's nothing to do with me. It's nothing to do with like how we feel about each other. It's more about like the bigger picture of like, I'm putting my family at risk. just by traveling up to Glasgow, which is like, what, 35 miles or whatever.
Yeah.
And then, you know, he has a girlfriend and they're staying together, and I was just, you know, it's just too up in the air, and I was like, it's a pandemic, like it's actually, it's wild, because I think a lot of us don't even think of it as like an actual, this is actually happening, unless someone, of course, like you've lost. But I think once because that hasn't happened, it's hard to even think of this as like a worldwide pandemic that has never, like, in our generation, has never happened.
Yeah, it's been quite strange to get your head around. But then again, I think people adapt so quickly. Like it felt so strange at the beginning, and then it was just like, oh well, this is the new normal.
Remember house party?
I know.
We were on that like every night, like, hey,
I know. I think what we're week 9. I think the first week of lockdown. So we're now 28th of May. So first week of lockdown a couple of months ago was just basically people hopping in and out of rooms in an at-home house party. And then I think a vicious rumor went around that they were stealing everyone's data, and then everyone just deleted it.
I deleted it and I was like, that is not happening. And then someone said, yeah, it's a scam, like, that's fake. And I was like, oh, okay, I'll go on. And no one was on. So I've got like one friend.
I know, but every so often somebody will log on to it and you get a notification.
And you're like, oh,
and then you're like, oh, I'm gonna get... I know. Oh, that's funny. So what, like, should we kind of talk about the time? Should we talk about the time, like, when you kind of were, you know, we're all kind of grown up and we're in our like going out and, you know, living our lives and stuff like that. But obviously you fell pregnant with Zara and you were working at the time. What was that whole experience like?
Okay. Let's go back to the start, shall we? So I had just completed my graduate scheme at a house builder, Calla Homes, and it was a really tough, like, graduate scheme to get into and to complete and whatnot. Completed that, and I just moved back to Glasgow. I bought a house and stuff happened. So I sold the house and moved back to Glasgow. Everything was like feeling quite fresh and new, and I was like, yes, I have like a perfect job and everything's going so sweet and swell. Got a new boyfriend, that's good. And then 4 months later, I am pregnant. So I was like, what? And to say the least, so to put it nicely, basically when it happened, I crashed the back of my car. So you can imagine everything going through my head at that time. Just
how did you crash?
I was pulling up outside baby daddy's flat, and I was so petrified to go in and tell him that I just, like, basically I was like,
because you'd done the test.
I sat in my car, just like looking up at his flat, and I was like, nah, I need to go back to my flat. And I backed up into the lamppost. He comes out to the window and he's like, what?
I didn't know that.
He was like, are you okay? We don't need to go to the cinema tonight. I was like, I'm fine. But yeah, okay, let's not go to the cinema. And then it just kind of, you know, we were both happy. We both wanted our daughter. Unfortunately, 3 months in to that, so I was 4 months pregnant. He didn't want to be with me anymore. Stuff happens, and I just had to continue on. It was like, to be honest, I can't really remember most of it. Like, being pregnant, I just know that like most women when they are pregnant, like, oh, this is the best time. Like, I've got my glow. I never got my glow. I'm still waiting on my glow. And yeah, it was just like, it was so many emotions that I was happy, but I was also devastated. You know, it was such a blur. And luckily, like, he was there when she was born. And I think just after that, it just got a little bit more complicated. And like, not to go into too much detail, but it's, you know, when there are two parents and they have a baby and they're not together, I genuinely, like, unless you're like best friends before that, I can't imagine it ever being as simple, or I don't know, like I just can't imagine it being amicable, if that makes sense. There's always going to be someone that's hurt.
Yeah, that's true. There's always somebody that's hurt. If like the relationship's just broken up. Part though, like, I mean, I guess when people are older and their parents get divorced or whatnot, it can be sometimes a good thing because it's like an unhappy home. So like maybe two unhappy homes are better than two happy homes are better than one unhappy home.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like some of those situations, but I guess if like it's just you guys just being together, was that difficult breaking up while you were pregnant? Like what and like how did you like what were your conversations with people? Like how did your family think about it? What were friends talking about?
So essentially, like when the day it happened, we had a week of arguing, and again, not to get into too much detail, but it was just I think I could feel some sort of anxiety with him, and I could feel there was an emotion there that was, I don't know, I felt something wasn't right, and to be honest, like I think there wasn't any, like he wasn't cheating on me, he wasn't being unfaithful, but I don't know, there was something in me niggling me, and I kept having not outbursts, but like I was very, my emotions were heightened, and you're pregnant. And so that was like double whammy. And I was like, I felt really alone. So essentially we had a massive argument, and I was living with him at the time. And yeah, it was pretty crap. Like, you know, being asked to leave and I have a baby, and it was like, I didn't understand anything that was happening. And my mum and dad were trying to talk to him and understand what he was trying to explain. But I think it just got all a bit too much for him. And I don't think he gave himself time to process basically agreeing to have a baby. And it's understandable, we're 26 at the time, so we're still young, like, and he was just on the verge of like a new business, and you know, he was getting his life on track, and we were both getting our life on track, and you know, we're good paying jobs. We seemed to
kind of figure things out.
So then when obviously my mum and dad were involved essentially, and they were devastated at the time. Just seeing me upset was probably enough to like make them go crazy. And I didn't really tell my friends straight away what happened because I didn't understand what happened myself. And I was a bit ashamed or embarrassed. I don't know how to explain it.
Yeah, I guess people have this idealized vision of what a pregnancy is going to be like, and when you're having a baby and these types of things, and then if it doesn't work out exactly how you thought it was going to, or how you think that other people expect it to, then you might feel like they're going to judge you or whatnot. But I just think we just need to, like, number one, we need to get rid of these like outdated models that like people need to fit into because they don't fit into them anymore.
Exactly.
Of like the way that people's lives play out, and different people have different experiences. And like the other thing is like just like anyone that there's a fear of what people are going to think about that, but then there's also like people do show judgment, but I guess it's like what's driving that judgment? I guess there's insecurity in them that they're like throwing negativity in your direction, but then so part them, but then you've got to kind of manage your own mind space and think that it's not, you know, who cares about what anyone else thinks. It's just trying to make yourself happy in these situations.
So essentially, like, I think there was an element of being like embarrassed because, and this is going to sound really bad, and this is how I thought before I became a single mum. Like that's never going to happen to me. Because what do you think when you think about a single mum? When I was at high school, I thought a single mum was someone that didn't have a job, was, you know, never really wanted to have a career, didn't really have an education, didn't have, you know, goals, and that's terrible to say and I feel really like I kind of hate myself for thinking like that, but that a lot of people do.
But also, just like the other point there is like, we don't value as a society the work that mums do, or that single parents do, or parents do in general. We sort of like, if you can't attribute an economic value to something as in terms of like, you know, its contribution to GDP, then you just think, well, that doesn't really count. But it's basically, it's kind of like we're learning in this COVID period as well. We're learning that some of the most important things in society are the basic things that you need in a situation like this, like parents being able to look after their kids when they can't go to school. It's like, you know, people, you know, working in the NHS, it's policemen, and it's all of these things that are actually important, but people put these kind of careers on a pedestal that aren't actually as important. So like, it's almost like you're doing, by looking after Zara and staying at home, you're making such a massive contribution to the world, because she's going to grow up and be an incredible person, and with all the love and stuff that you put into her. But like, there is this judgment thing about society thinking, you know, people need to fit into these corporate molds or whatnot.
And it's like, and I think I physically and mentally couldn't continue going into, I mean, I started back in September at my job after maternity. So I was off for nearly a year on maternity.
And we met just after you'd given birth, right?
Literally, you met me in in summer. So she must have been about 6 months old or something. And it was a really good. Mm-hmm. You didn't think I had a baby. You were like, you didn't have a baby. I was like, yes, I did.
I'm like, where did all that? I was like, where did all the baby weight go? You've literally just given birth. And I'm like, nice to meet you, by the way.
I think what you did say was like, I think you went, F off. Well, very nice to meet you, Phil. I'm Julie-Anne.
I just had a baby. Fuck off. I mean, like, I don't know. Yeah, it was, but I mean, it was just it was a reaction that I truly felt. I was like, can't believe it. But
So I about maybe a few months later after we met, I started back at my job, and honestly, like, trying to juggle having a baby, getting up for work, and then getting her ready, and then making sure my dad and my parents are like okay to like look after her. I was like, this is a nightmare. And I worked in Falkirk, which is like an hour's drive in the morning in rush hour. And I was getting up at 6 a.m, getting home at 6 p.m. I wasn't getting to say goodnight to her. And it was literally soul crushing. And I was like, you know what? I just out of the blue, I think I was in a meeting with my manager about, like, it was a Monday morning report meeting. And I just turned around and went, I can't do this anymore. She was like, what do you mean the report? And I was like, no, this. And she was just like, okay, let's get a cup of tea. I was like, okay. So I was just, you know, I honestly feel like I don't know how mothers in jobs can do it. Like, and, you know, keep their head. And I don't, to be perfectly honest, I don't think a lot of mothers do go really back. They go part-time most of the time. Or they have, like, maybe if they're in a corporate job, they'll probably have a nanny or an au pair or someone, you know, able to look after. I can't afford that. I couldn't afford that.
Yeah. It's a weird one, this like, why do we just make the assumption that it's mothers anyway? It's such a kind of societal norm that people just assume that it's going to be like a single mother type thing. I read
there's a lot of single dads. But
it should be like accepted, or that for women to fully be able to have it all, or have whatever they choose to have, because you can't really have it all. Like, at the end of the day, you can't balance, like, having, unless you've got a real partnership, where, like, somebody is willing, and it's different times of life, maybe, you know, one person takes the childcare at one stage, but then somebody else's careers prioritize at other times. But like, if you're in a partnership, then you can do that. But if you're not, then the expectation that you can do both is just like completely, unreasonable for, you know, society to make that assumption.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that the whole stigma needs to change. I feel like sometimes when I tell people I'm a single mum, that they're just like, oh, you know, like, and you know, I mean, it's a perfectly reasonable response to give when they say, and how is that? And you're like, well, actually, you know, single mums, there's more single mums now than there ever was. And a lot of the time it's women that actually choose to be single mums. That's a really big thing at the moment. You know, there's women that have done their careers, have maybe risen to the top, and you know, they kind of gave their relationship and familial kind of values, put it to the side just to get to where they want, which is very hard. And I can't imagine I can't imagine how they feel about that. And then they've maybe gone, okay, I need to have a baby. And I think that's pretty powerful. And I think that's going to be a trend for the next maybe a decade or whatever. But I don't know. I wish that there was more information. I don't know.
I think it's just like lack of judgment against other people's life choices, and also there's stigmas as well, like with lots of things: gender, race, you know, sexual orientation, you know, people who are like just have kids themselves, aren't in relationships. Like there's so many dimensions to this, and some of it's like, well, basically all of it is like, yes, there are these kind of societal prejudices that have an effect, but like, I guess to some extent, when you tell somebody that you are a single mom, and then they come back with that response, like, you know, oh, so how is that? I guess you've got a choice whether you let the outside world define who you are in your own mind, and then versus like, and if you don't believe what other people believe about stigma, then just you've got a choice whether to kind of go out and tell the world that you know, it's not like that, or you can just prove the world wrong in some way. But it's hard because you're constantly being told that you can't, I guess. And that's like a tricky one.
So a kind of a good point. It's kind of a good point and not a good point whatsoever. But when, you know, people are saying, and so how are you finding, you know, are you trying to find a guy? Are you, you know, looking for somebody? And some people are like, you know what, like, you don't need to find anybody. Like, you can just be doing you. And half the time I'm thinking, yeah, they're just saying that to make me feel better, because like they probably think that I'm not going to be able to find a guy, or I'm not going to be able to get into a relationship with a baby. And I think my aunt said maybe like a month or two after I gave birth to Zara, and she was like, "Don't be picky." I was like, no.
But you know that whenever anyone says something like that, that's coming from their own insecurities. And so like, it's so hard to just ignore them and just be like, whatever you're saying is coming from your own kind of warped perception about how the way the world is. And it's like this filter, this insecurity filter that people say things through, but then they can pass it on to you if you're not careful and you don't ignore their advice or whatever. So like, if your aunt says something like that to you, you've got to just be like, I feel empathy for you that you have that perspective, but that doesn't, I don't believe that that's the way that the world is.
I was like, oh, okay. I was like, no, No, I'm fine. I was like, I'm doing okay. Like, but yeah, I think that's probably another point to get on is like relationships. I mean, I've not been in a relationship, really since my baby daddy, and I'm actually like I can't like I'm quite set in everything that I do, and I think like Zara's the epicenter of everything. So she's my life.
Mhm.
And everything would be separate to that completely. And as much as like I'm trying not to lose, so I'm trying to keep my identity as I am Julie-Anne, but I am a mother. I
Mm.
am Zara's mum. You know what I mean? And
Mm.
I think like I think that um I think that it's more what am I trying to say here? It's more that the more it's less stigmatized, the easier it is for everybody to just like for single mums to just continue on and to retrieve their identity because I believe that they will lose that. And I'm
Mm.
very fortunate that I have really good friends and a good social network that like I have not lost who I am. If anything, I've actually gained more confidence through having
Mm.
Zara, which is really nice, which is a bit nuts because I've completely changed, what I want to do in life, what career I want is completely changed. What
And
goals I now have.
how do you see that now? And like, how was it? Because obviously you kind of went in a graduate scheme and you were kind of had these big plans about how life would play out, and
Yeah.
obviously they've gone in a different direction. So was that like scary at first, adjusting to this new version of the way that your life was going to play out? And then like, how did you come to, I guess, from what it sounds like, embrace it? And what is the plan?
So basically, like from having this amazing job to having my world turned upside down for a little glorious angel baby.
Mhm.
Um, and like I think it did take me a few months to kind of get my head around it and to be like, this is not how I planned it, and this is completely different to anything I ever expected. There's a lot of lows in between that point as well. Anxiety was rampant. I still get anxiety about stuff, but we can talk about that later.
Mhm.
And I think it was just getting out there and going out. It was like winter as well when I had her, so I wasn't going out. And then as soon as like, spring came and summer came and I was going up to Glasgow more. I've
Mhm.
seen our friend Natasha in London and,
Mhm.
doing different things and making myself feel really good. And
Yeah.
I think you need to do that. And I think that it just completely opened my eyes to I have a baby, but I'm still able to be happy with myself.
Yeah.
It did take a lot. It did take a lot to get there, and it still takes a lot sometimes when I'm feeling low to bring myself back up again.
The one thing about, I guess, like sharing parenting duties is that you can get a break at some point.
Yes.
I mean, like, there's a lot of couples who, like, not everybody that seems like they've got it all worked out actually does. And
Yeah.
there's a lot of couples out there that maybe have stayed together and they've got a baby, but they're like unhappy and they don't get to spend any time with their friends or anything because, like, they or they're hardly one of them's having to stay at home looking after the kid if the other one wants to go on a night out. It's
Yeah.
like, so it can be a big strain on a relationship. Whereas
Yeah.
in a way, if you're sharing parenting duties, then you can kind of have your great time with Zara when she's there, and then when she's not, when she's with her dad, you can kind of come up to Glasgow or whatnot and see your friends. So
Yeah.
there's pros and cons of every situation, and not everybody like feels as good as it maybe looks from the
Mm-hmm.
outside.
So co-parenting is something like so. This is gonna sound. I don't know if you watched the Kardashians, but I assume you don't, Phil. So basically, Courtney and Scott,
Mm-hmm.
they co-parent, and they make it seem like it's the easiest thing in the world, forgetting that they have all these millions of pounds and whatnot, or dollars. Like, they make it seem like it's so easy, and they can get on so well, and they're on the same wavelength. They were together for like 10 years or something like that, something ridiculous. Like, that's a long time, and then split up. So co-parenting for me, not gonna lie, is pretty, like, it's so tough because we're not on the same wavelength. And from the offset, it's been really awkward, and I've been really like cautious about Zara spending time with her dad. And it's not because he's a horrible person or he loves her very much, I believe, but I think it's just that because we don't agree on things, if something really important comes up, like a pandemic, and we can't agree on it, that's where it gets really tricky. And that's where I've just been so apprehensive and, again, anxiety about it. And it is very tough. And I'm so grateful that I have my 2 nights or 3 nights every 2 weeks to myself, because he wants to see her, which is lovely. And yeah, it's something that is going to continuously evolve over her lifetime between me and the baby daddy. So
yeah, and it's like one of the negative things that can come out there is like competition between the parents.
oh my god, yeah.
But the kid, like the kid, like Zara, just wants to be loved and doesn't like. I guess does that maybe come? I don't know whether does that come from like an insecurity that because it's okay for her to have an amazing relationship with her dad and have an amazing relationship with you, and they don't need to be like. It's never a zero-sum game. It's not like it's going to be better with him and worse with you. It's going to be more like he's better at something and you're better at others, and that's fine. But there's a kind of acceptance there that need, like, you almost need to make with yourself rather than like that's an argument point between you and him. What do you think?
Yeah. So essentially, I think because of the way that me and him kind of, parted ways from one another, I was completely devastated, and I didn't want to end the relationship at the time. And I think that made me feel really insecure about myself. And there's, I'm unlovable was one of them. Like, no one's gonna love me. Like, is this baby even gonna love me? Like, if he can't love me, blah 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 blah. And I think that is always in the back of my mind, is like, is she gonna love him more? But I'm her mum, and like, you should see the way she is with me, and she isn't like that with anybody else. Like, she loves her grandparents, she loves her dad, like, but it's completely different. And sometimes I need someone to actually just say it to me, like, did you see the way that she looked at you? Did you see that smile? And sometimes I'm just like, no, I didn't notice it like the way that you did. So thank you for bringing that up, because I need to feel that. I need to have that reassurance sometimes that it's like, she does love me, and when she does go to spend time with her dad, that's a different love that they have. It's not the same type of love. And but that's one thing. So that's like one way that I feel that there is a bit of competition. There could be competition, especially like, Christmas. We had Christmas just there, and I was trying to like sneakily ask him, so what did you get, Zara? Just like, but he didn't give away anything. So I was like,
but that, I guess, the only thing I'd say about that, I mean, it's like it's amazing because you're just showering her with so much love, and like there's so many kids that don't have any parent that kind of is that loving and caring about them. The only tricky thing is they're like, how much is it? And it happens in all relationships. It's not just parent child, it's siblings, it's in relationships. It's like, how much are you doing it for them versus how much are you doing it for you, type thing.
Yeah.
And that's always a tricky one that you need to watch out for, because otherwise, like later, you don't want to be in a situation where, like, especially like, because my parents separated, like, you can feel like you're torn a little bit between them, and it can be a difficult position for a kid to be in. And if there's an expectation that she's kind of on your side versus kind of just, equally on both sides,
Mhm.
then that's going to just that could cause resentment down the road.
I think the only good thing, the only thing that comes from like, the only thing that is good about being sometimes insecure is I'm quite naive about things, and I always believe in the best in situations and people, and I can be cynical, but most of the time I'm quite like gooey, and I'd love to think that everything's rainbow and butterflies. So like I from the offset wanted, I mean, with discussions with myself, I kind of wanted more that Zara would have a really good relationship with her dad, because I would hate for her to turn around to me at, I don't know, 14, 16, 18, whatever age, and say to me like, why did you do that? Why didn't you let me have that type of relationship with my dad like everyone else gets to their dad? Why did you do that? And I'd hate to hear those words from her mouth. So I've always made it my point to be like, no, I want you to have this relationship with her, and I want you to have that time, and I'm never taking it away from you. But we have to do it in a manner that is like not gonna like disrupt my or our life, because you know, at the end of the day we aren't together. And I'm just talking from like a visitation point of view. He's wanting a lot more time with her, and I don't think that that's necessarily okay at this stage in her life, because she is so young, and she has to, you know, she has to learn from a kind of core environment. And you know, I've had a lot of discussions with not specialists, but people that know what they're talking about, lawyers and whatnot, and health professionals, just trying to understand, is this going to like confuse her too much? Like, what's the deal? So I've always kind of made it my point to make sure that I am doing what's right for her as much as possible, without making him feel like I'm disrupting their relationship in any way. And sometimes he does feel like that, and that causes a lot of friction, and I get quite upset, because I genuinely I'm not doing that. And like I said, I'm quite naive about things, so from my personality point of view, I'd never do that. And I'd always want them to have a really good relationship. So it's so tough.
Yeah, it's a tricky one for a lot of people. But I mean, like, do you know what? There's tricky things in every situation. Either
life is hard. That's
you know,
what
life is hard. Yeah, life is
hard.
And you know what? Life isn't what you planned. Actually, you know what? Your thing is quite unplanned as well. You know, Zara was unplanned. But at the end of the day, you've ended up with this little bundle of joy, and it's incredible.
She's so cool.
Sometimes the things that you totally don't envisage end up being the best things that happen to you.
And it's so funny because everything that's happened to me after she's been born, and it's like meeting people that I never expected to meet, and reconnecting with people that I never expected to reconnect with, and you know, mad things just happening, and I'm just thinking to myself like, that all this was meant to happen. I'm now like, so going back to like the career point of view of things, like from being in high school, I always wanted to act, but I was too like, I again was insecure, so I never really thought that you know, who's going to take me seriously? If I turn around to my mum and dad and I say I want to go to drama school, they'll be like, snap. So I was like, okay, that's not a choice for me. I don't know. I think they were, you know, my mum and dad are like working class, and they've always been working class, and my dad was in the military, so like his point of view, it's all like free and like la di da da da. So I was like, I cannot tell him that I want to go do this. And so
did you ask, or did you assume?
I assumed. And when you assume, you make an ass out of you and me. So I was just like, okay. And when I told them, so now I'm in an acting course for the next like year at the Royal Conservatoire in Scotland. Cool. And I got a scholarship. And I never honestly thought, like, I mean, it's not a big deal. It's not like I'm doing a degree or anything with them. So it wasn't like a hard process for me. But even just like to get it's paid for me. I don't need to pay anything, and it's a lot of money to go to the conservatoire.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, see, if I didn't have Zara, that would never have happened.
Yeah.
And like just everything from that, I am like, my whole mind is completely changed about stuff, and I'm finding more new things about myself that are interesting. Like, I actually know a lot about film. I know a lot about like different ways of like different styles of acting that I never knew I thought I knew. There's just like different levels that I'm like, whoa, right? Why did I not just go with what I felt back then?
Mm-hmm.
But it's because I was scared of telling people and scared of like doing it, I guess.
Were
Scared of
you
rejection.
this is like, were you making an assumption that your parents wouldn't see that as like a respectful choice, because really it was an excuse you could almost make up in your mind to mean that you didn't have to put yourself out there? And like, because if you ask them, they might say yes, and then you'd have to go down this path that that could have led to rejection. Do you reckon
Yeah,
there's kind of an element of that?
absolutely. Because if I look back at other things that I've asked them about throughout my life, and I've known that they would say no or disapproved, I went and done it anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But this was like something that, oh my god, what if people laugh at me? Like, what if people think you're never going? Like, I'm still learning. I'm just a student. I've never been in anything.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, what if people laugh at me? What if people are like, she can't act, she can't be an actress? Like,
Mm-hmm.
and I think,
Well, they might do that.
oh yeah, totally. Like,
Like,
I'm probably really shit at acting,
no,
to be honest.
but it's not that like either you're good or you're not. But it doesn't really matter if you're just not doing it for the validation from other people. If you're just doing it because you genuinely like the art, or the kind of putting in the effort to go to have the journey of
Yeah,
trying to do something, then that's where you need to get the joy from. Whereas a lot of people think too much about like what it's going to be like when they make it, in
yeah,
quote. I mean, like, for example, I probably did the exact same thing with this show,
yeah,
where I was spending loads of time. I mean, I think me and you talked about it a lot. I think
yeah,
everybody I spoke to for a long time I talked to about doing this, and I wasn't really sure, how I was going to do it, and I thought about it, and I strategized, and I just overthought, and it was all happening inside my head.
mm-hmm.
And it's only ever really happening when you take action to do something. And like, but it's like taking that first step onto the stage, or making that
Yeah,
first video, or
mm-hmm.
having the courage to just put yourself out there. That's the hardest part. And then now it just feels like, just second nature to just have these conversations with people. And I know that people are going to watch them, but I'm not worried about the judgment. And you end up, when you stop worrying like about that, the judgment of other people, then you end up doing a much better job, because you're just yourself, and you just are willing to just kind of just put out who you are as a person, and people gravitate towards authenticity, and they just gravitate towards people who have the right intentions for what they're doing. And I think if your just intention is to do great acting, then people will appreciate it, because you're coming from the right place.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think because I was so insecure in high school about doing it, and then I think when into like 2013 or 2014, I think I applied to do. I think it was this course. It may have been slightly different at the conservatoire, but I didn't get it. I never told anyone that I applied to do it or anything. And then I think because of that, I was just like, you know what, I'm just going to like scrap that completely. Went back to uni and then got my graduate job. So it's always been in the back of my mind. And I thought, you know what, see, while I am being a mum, and this is going to be me until she's in nursery or primary school, I'm going to give it a shot, and I'm just going to see what happens. And so far, things are coming together, and I'm starting to write. I've never written a thing in my life. I'm pretty sure I got a C in English. So
But it doesn't really matter if it's the truth that you're just trying to express.
yeah,
Like,
exactly. So I'm writing and I'm looking at different ways to do a screenplay, and just kind of studying a little bit about different directing styles and like everything that I never thought I would be interested in. But at the same time, like, I'm trying to think about the future. What if this doesn't work out? What if this was just a nice thought? And yeah, I'm just taking it day by day. I'm not going to
yeah.
put myself down too much
You know what?
about it.
Like, but doing like, you know what? Something like doing the writing of the things, but at the end of the day, that's still, I did that for such a long time. I know I told you about this technology platform that I was building. And I've spent a lot of time kind of on my own writing software
Yeah.
for what
Yeah.
I thought people wanted.
Yeah.
But like, I don't think it's a product. I've now got to the point where unless you're telling the world what you believe or showing the world your work on a regular basis, then
Yeah.
nobody knows it's happening.
Yeah.
So like I would just say like write something short and then act it and then put it online.
It's in the works.
Right.
I've
Okay.
taken a little break for about a week and maybe 2 weeks or something like that. But
you should do, you know what you should do? You should do
trying
like a TikTok series of skits. That'd be cool.
Yeah, I think the only trouble is I have such a clear idea of what I want to do and what I want to give people and what I think
But
people
how do
want
you
to.
know?
Well, I've spoken to some close friends about this, and I think maybe you were one of them. Maybe
I would just say, like, although like the idea, like ultimately like a small group of people, I especially like, I mean, like don't take just, I mean, for what it's worth,
yeah,
like, my opinion on this has changed because I spoke to loads of friends about like my idea about what I was working on, and we had some great conversations. But ultimately, if nobody's consuming the thing that you're creating, rather apart from kind of describing it to them, they're going to tell you, "I love it, do it."
yeah,
Even if they either because they genuinely believe it's a good idea,
yeah.
or because they love you and they
And
want
they don't
to,
want to. They want to
and
support me no matter
they
what.
want to support you. But like, if like where I've got to with this is, if you don't have people either spending their time consuming the content that you're making, I guess that's how they're going to do it,
Yeah,
or their money by genuinely paying for the thing that you're offering, which is
yeah,
probably not going to be the case. What you would probably have to do would be build it. Maybe it would be paying to go into a theater to watch. If it's online, it's probably going to be like advertising revenue after a while.
yeah,
Like that type of thing, you don't know that people, i.e. the entire market of people that have eyeballs or a wallet, are going to like that thing unless you've
yeah.
got data that you can see that they're actually
Back in. Yeah,
gravitating towards it. So I would just say, just like as soon as possible, because we probably talked about this when I was thinking, ideology, thinking about the way that you could create something and just have it in your mind, and you think it's what people want, so you're going to keep working on it. But I've
yeah,
completely switched my thinking about this, and I just think you should put out the roughest version possible of the idea that's in your mind, and then just let other people decide whether it's good or not.
yeah. I mean, like in a way, when I do, just going to give it away slightly, but it's the kind of idea that I want to get rid of the taboo about being a single mum. That's right. And as much as like whenever I put anything about me and Zara out there, everybody loves it, and I'm not trying to like talk I only have 900 followers or something like that on Instagram. I'm not like an influencer or whatever. But people I don't really even talk to and stuff like that, they're like, "Oh my god, this like you're great, you're funny, like this is good."
Mm-hmm.
And like I just feel like there's not a lot about being a mum in general. And I'd like to impart some wisdom, if I have any, and bring some emotion and laughter and tears and everything to it, to show what it's like in a nice way.
I love that.
So as soon as I can, I will do something. I will get.
Well, you're also doing it right now. I guess anyone that watches this, I mean, I'm sure, within our collective group of friends or contacts or followers or whatever, there's people kind of that have had similar experiences to the one that you've had. So it's like helping one person, or like making one person feel like they're not alone and that they've got similar experience to you. That's often the thing that matters the most, rather than caring about, you know, having hundreds of thousands of people liking or the content, or caring about, you know, how much money you earn. It's just like, can you just get one person, and then if you can find one person that loves the thing that you're making, then you'll be able to find other people that will too.
And I think, like, I just don't want anybody to be scared about being a mum, and scared in case your relationship breaks down or that person that you love the most is going to leave you. Like, I hate to think about Zara going through that ever. But you know what? It's like, if it was to ever happen to her or to one of my friends, like, don't be scared, and like, I'm going to show you how it's not scary, and it's okay, and you can do it, and you're going to be actually 100 times better than you were before you had your baby, and you know, all this happened. It's gonna make you someday. And as cliche as that sounds, like, it actually happens. So it's like, I want to try and be living proof of that as much as possible.
A lot of people, it's like post-traumatic stress people talk a lot about, but they don't talk about post-traumatic growth. And sometimes the worst things that happen to you can actually be the thing that sends you off in another direction.
I believe in that.
You talked about something earlier about fear of rejection and being afraid afterwards that nobody's going to, after you'd broken up with your ex, that, you know, nobody's going to love you if, you know, they can't, that type of thing. So do you think that that's kind of come from earlier? Have you had that always? How's that?
Yeah, like, I've had that at my first relationship that I was ever in. And that's how me and Natasha know each other. Our boyfriends were best friends with each other. And I was like 18 or 19 or something like that. He was like my first proper boyfriend after high school. So, you know, it was next level. It was mind blowing for me at the time. It was amazing. But it did come with a lot of developed anxiety, I think. I've never had anxiety before I was with him. And unfortunately, he wasn't very nice to me. He was cheating on me quite a lot with different girls, and he was such a good looking guy, probably the most beautiful guy I've ever seen. And I was just like, okay, like, you cheated on me, like, brilliant, let's have an argument and then I'll get back with you again. But it actually got to the point where it was like getting quite physical and mentally not good, because he could see that I was a pushover. And I think every time we would have a fight or whatever, or maybe we broke up for a day or a week, whatever, I'd be like, who's going to love me again after this? Because I've been such a fool. I've been such an idiot. Like,
I think that I was talking about this yesterday a little bit, about why people gravitate towards people that don't treat them well. And it's like, I think the people that you spend time with sometimes are a reflection of what you think of yourself. And so the moment that you can get to a place where you love yourself so much, you're going to find people that are going to love you fully too.
Yeah.
That
And I think I just didn't. I think it's taken me a very long time from that moment. I'd say like 5 years, probably, maybe a bit longer, to get over that. Like, to love myself, to think that I'm worthy of being loved. And to be honest, my mum and dad gave me so much affection and so much love when I was growing up, like an incredible amount, and they've been together for like 40 years or something like that. And I think like I think that my idea of love is a little bit skewed. Like, it's definitely skewed, and I think that I believe in Disney love because of that. And that's where I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna have to reevaluate what I think of as
it's kind of, you need to hold both ideas in your head at the same time. You need to go like, it's going to be incredible, but then if it's not, you need to just accept it, and not accept it in the way that it's like sad acceptance. It's like have high expectations in advance, and then as soon as somebody lets you down, or as soon as it doesn't work out the way, you like need to just switch immediately and be like, okay, what's next?
I'm not like that at all. I'm literally just like, I'm like, please love me. Do not leave me. No, I think no, you're right. You're completely right. You have to be a robot. You have to just be like, okay, that's cool. Like, next. Like, thank you.
But I don't think that is having no emotions. Like,
no,
I don't think it's that you're. I think it's just living in the moment, and it's not projecting too far ahead and thinking that the world's going to be like the way that you have hyped it up to be, and it's just being like, what's happening in the here and now, and can I just like enjoy this moment absolutely. And also when things go badly, just go like, well, that's going to pass, but right now if I just focus on the here and now, then like, you know, the only thing that makes people happy is when they dwell in the past or they fear the future. And if you just focus on like living today every day, then that takes away a lot of the kind of baggage or extra layers of things that people add on to the relationships with people.
Absolutely. It's so stressful sometimes when you're when you do, you know, I used to live in I still kind of do live in the past sometimes. When I'm having my low moments, you know, I'll kind of just like start to dwell, and then I'll frantically think about the future, and then I'll project all this negativity into the future, and I'm like, that's probably not going to happen, love. Like, calm down, like, you know, just have a beer, chill. And then it's like, I think that's another thing though, is in like 2011, I think it was, I was diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder, and this was after the relationship that I was in, so maybe 2012. And it just basically means that I cannot, like, sometimes I will just feel like there's impending doom, so, or something bad's about to happen, or something bad is happening, and I can't understand it, and there's nothing happening, so it's just like there's no trigger. It's not like there's just something that triggers me, it just happens. I've got it under control as much as I can, but sometimes it just happens.
Like, sometimes, I mean, I know we're just come off the back of Mental Health Awareness Week, and it's okay to not feel okay, and there's no judgment for people, but like only on the kind of anxiety thing, I think a lot of people feel it, and it's usually because of the kind of worrying about the future or concerns about dwelling on the past, or it's just like, it's like mindset. It's like, to some extent though, like a diagnosis can be helpful because it allows you to kind of understand, okay, this is, you know, an illness, but it can also be like an ideology that you build around yourself and go, oh, well, that's like that's like I'm disabled in some way. So you can kind of make excuses for your feelings or being in, and I kind of struggle with that a little bit, because I think to some extent people have choice over a lot of these things, and
they
it's
do.
it's a tricky one. But if things are going over, if things are keep on, if it's a continual pattern of that keeps happening, then there's obviously something wrong. And it's like, I don't know, it's just trying to find the balance between what can you control versus what is kind of inherent in you as a human. And I don't know the answers because I'm not an expert, and I'm just putting in my 2 cents, but it's just like I kind of, this mindset thing is a kind of constant struggle for people a lot.
I think like with the way that it kind of happened with me, I didn't understand why I would have, you know, moments of like complete and utter like fear, and I couldn't move. I couldn't really like, I didn't want to go anywhere, and I'd just be like, what is this? Like I'd be dressed up going on a night out, and I'd just be like, I can't go. Like I don't want to go.
Wow.
Or I'd just be like by myself and I wouldn't want to talk to anybody. You know, it got to a point twice in my anxiety time of life where it got to the point where it was like, okay, like you, like this is bad, like this isn't good, Julie-Anne, like really bad, like we need to talk about it. We need to talk about it someday, because you can't do this anymore. And
you're actually quite an interesting one, because you're super positive, like on the outside, and also probably like a lot kind of inside, but you don't, I think, talk through the anxiety that you're feeling in your head, maybe.
So the best way to put, what was this? I'm like the happiest, the most happy, anxious, and depressed person that you'll ever meet. Because like I never want to burden anybody, and I never want to just pour what I'm thinking onto somebody else, because I'm like, I don't want them to feel what I'm feeling, because it's horrible. So I'm just not going to talk about it. Let's just not. And then I'll just put on like a happy veneer, and you know, I'm shiny, bubbly, charming.
But that's not the truth of how you're feeling.
Sometimes no. But but the thing is, this whole "it's okay not to be okay" is so new. It's like only the past like maybe 2-3 years it's been around, really. And I couldn't tell anyone I had anxiety. I didn't want to tell people I was feeling like shit about myself. I didn't want to, you know, tell them what I actually was feeling, because it was really dark and scary and not nice. So why would I want to tell somebody that, like, and make them feel like me? No, like I'd rather not do that. But turns out it's toxic to do that, and it's not good, and it's actually eating you up and killing you from the inside out. So you know what? You talk about it, and actually people are okay. People aren't as like weird about it as you thought.
Well, you're actually helping other people.
Yeah,
like it's not that it's like they're okay with it. They're happy that you people are so happy when you break the stigma of like feeling like things are not how they want it to be, or they're, I guess, just by sharing your own experiences of life, you're helping other people because they can relate to it. And if you don't share it, or if somebody doesn't come out as gay, then other people don't feel comfortable in doing it. Or, you know, if you don't say that you've got anxiety, then, you know, other people are concealing it too. And it's literally just down to communication. Being open just about like what the truth is about how you're feeling and stuff, but not trying to like there's an element of talking to people that's like self-reinforcing the cycle. It can be destructive in a way, but just talking through it in a kind of cathartic way that can try to come to some sort of resolution, or try to solve where you're coming from, or just sharing it with others because you want to help them, and that can also be the best way to help yourself. That could be some of the most powerful conversations you'll have, but that takes courage, and people have fear of rejection, like we were talking about earlier. So it's a tricky one.
Yeah, when I think it was only maybe over the past, since having Zara, I think that was the first time really that I told my friends to the extent of which or how bad it had gotten for me, like on those 2 occasions. And they were like, why didn't you tell me? Or like, like why would you think like that, and why would you not say, like, never do that again, like you need to tell me if that ever happens. And then I'm like, yeah, but like I don't want to upset you. I don't want you to feel like that. And then they go, I felt like that a few times, or I've done something stupid, and I wish that you talked to me about this because we could have helped each other. And then I'm like, now I feel like an idiot. But you don't know, like you just get scared. And yeah, absolutely, I'm happy to talk. Like I spoke to someone last week who's a good friend of mine, and she felt really low, and she was talking to me about it, and I had to just tell her things about me and how I felt and things that have happened in my past. And she actually was like, and I thank you so much. Like I genuinely needed to hear that because I'm by myself right now. My boyfriend's out, and I didn't know what to do. And I'm so like, thank you for sharing all that with me. And then we just had a massive discussion all night, and I made sure she was okay, and she is okay. And I think that is a really good thing. And yeah, it's okay not to be okay. So
yeah,
we all have bad
for sure. But yeah, I just think yeah we do. It's like but it's one of these things that people really need to not get into a cycle of relying on the positivity or the validation. It's almost a validation as well. It's another form of validation. It's not you're so amazing, it's that your problems are like you're special because your problems are tough as well. It's I guess this complaining thing can be reinforcing. So I've actually tried not because I'm like holding things in, but because I think very carefully about what comes out of my mouth can reinforce what I think about the world.
Yeah, it's like
And
manifesting. It's like you need to manifest it.
And I really believe that. And I think that I will, if I constantly kind of think or speak about things in it, I don't speak negatively about people. I don't try and pull people down. I don't beat myself up and judge myself for like things going wrong. And I try to like be positive in things, because if you can do that, you can reinforce the positive mentality, and it's almost like cumulative. It builds up over time. But otherwise, if you're constantly feeling like repeating like negativity over and over to yourself and like friends, then it can build up and make the problem worse. And
absolutely, yeah. I think at one point I was living with somebody, and she was my best friend, and all throughout high school and after high school, and she had depression. I think she was like on bipolar. She had like a bipolar disorder as well, I think. And I was going through my anxiety for the first time, and my breakup with my first boyfriend and stuff. And living with her was probably the worst thing that could have happened to me, because it made it made it so much worse. Because she was in such a bad spiral, and I needed to be surrounded by people that are positive. And I actually, you know what, this year I've been surrounded by so many positive people, and so many influencing, like, good, nice, genuinely nice people, that my anxiety has been probably the lowest it's been in a very long time, which is surprising because it's been hard, you know, but it's
especially this time in life.
positivity is infectious.
Yeah, it is, and it's often a choice. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, it is. I do believe that. I think people can choose to go and do some yoga. They can choose to be mindful. They can choose to feel like they can choose to take action that is going to make them feel better by not like overcoming their fears to do the thing that they want to do, and not dwelling on the past by just trying to live in the moment. But yeah, it's hard. I mean, it's like it's a tricky balance to make, because I'm totally empathetic to people who are going through a tough time. But you know that the answer is that they need to stop complaining. They need to like take action to
whether it be talking to somebody like professionally, or
yeah, and that's part of the solution too. It's just seeking help and trying to like get the answer.
Yeah.
What's the root cause? Is it they're afraid people are judging them? Is it that they're they didn't get along with their parents? They judge themselves. They're just there's so many kind of things that could be going on underneath the surface. But once you like pinpoint what it is, you've got to like
you need to be proactive about it.
Yeah.
Being proactive about it. I think leaving it for as long as I did, that wasn't being proactive at all. It made everything so much worse. It snowballed.
And nobody's going to solve it for you. That's the other thing.
I'm the only person that can do it. It's just me. It's like, I'm not saying that you have like some people just if you are having like a manic episode, you don't have a choice, because your brain literally functions on a different frequency, and you're having a breakdown or whatever. But if that's not happening, and you're just like you can feel it happening, you can feel anxiety about to you're going to be low tomorrow. Okay, so what can I do now before this happens?
Yeah.
And it's just knowing yourself. It's knowing yourself, which is hard, because not a lot of people know themselves. I'm not saying I know myself by any means, but like I know myself better than I did. But yeah, for sure, I don't know. The world is crazy.
Sure is.
I'm
super excited to see what happens with all this writing that you've been doing during lockdown. I think that's one of the positive things coming out of all of this stuff is people have been creative. They're using often this time to do something awesome, create something.
Absolutely.
And it's gonna be pretty exciting to see. And I think I just kind of admire like you speaking out about this, and awesome that you've come on the show, because I agree with you. I don't think people talk about the challenges that being a single mum that you face. And I know that we've talked about it quite a bit, but it takes courage to come on and like be so open about it. So thanks. I think you've probably
hopefully it wasn't like I didn't scare anybody. But it's just like I want to talk about it to more people, so that they aren't scared about it, and what you're feeling and what you're going through is completely normal, and none of us know what we're doing. I don't know what I'm doing most of the time. I just kind of wing it. I'm really good at winging things. So this is one thing I'm good at winging it.
Yeah, you never know. Like, that's the one thing I've also realized. Like, you like a lot of the time you're just kind of making the best decision that you possibly can in the circumstances that you're in, and then don't judge yourself if it goes wrong, or that it's not working out, because sometimes, most of the time, a majority of the time, it's not going to work out exactly as you want it to. So.
Well, thank you very much for having me. I know we've been on for like an hour and 20 minutes.
An hour and 20 minutes. This is.
I know. I'm relying on the street lighting outside.
Oh yeah,
please stay on. It's so dark. I need to go switch on some lamps.
Oh no. All right, Julie-Anne, thank you so much for coming on the show. Catch up soon.
Thank you, Phil.
Bye.
Speak to you soon.